Hello everyone, I hope you are doing good. So Tech Info is back with another technical video to enrich students with Microsoft Azure cloud knowledge. So I have created this video for to discuss industry use case, and previously I have created another video where you can learn how to launch your first server on the Microsoft Azure. So this is a bit more technical, where you can plan your network infrastructure and deploy instances in that. So in this video, I'm going to discuss one industry use case. I have worked on various projects, and so this will help you how to understand customer requirements, and based on those requirements, how to create the project and create a solution based on that. So here I'm going to discuss the same. One customer came and expressed his requirements, and based on understanding of those requirements, I created the solution. So let's move forward. I'll give you high overview what I created and what all it went, and then how we handed over to customer and what you will learn in the end in this video. So let's move forward. So background of this is that customer is looking for greenfield migration. Greenfield migration is that they have existing infrastructure and they want to create new infrastructure over Microsoft Azure in parallel to existing one. And they will migrate their applications over to Azure from existing on-premise data center. So they want to create new infrastructure for their test environment. So first they want to move test environment over the cloud. And a bit more details about the infrastructure requirements. They want to have two segregated networks where they want to deploy their two-tier application architecture, and they want to expose only one network to internet, and another they want to keep private, so that in private they can deploy their application, and in the exposed layer, or we can say web layer, they will deploy their web architecture, web servers. And they need secure internet access on the private subnets, so that servers can download patches. So we will use firewall for that to control the access. Also, they want to deploy network firewall to control the access. And once this is ready, then customer will be responsible for installation and management of applications, and customer will be responsible for data migration. So customer is looking for basic infrastructure, and how we can secure that infrastructure using network firewall. So we will create network components and bastion host to manage the servers. So let's get into more details how we propose the solution. So this is the proposed solution to customers. So in this, these are the steps that we discussed and proposed this solution. So in this solution, we will create low-level design, the diagram of the proposed solution, then customer onboarding to Azure, creating the login on the console, creation of user and groups. Then we will create a resource group on the Azure cloud. Then we will create a virtual network, which is sort of virtual data center on Azure, so that he can deploy his applications. Then in that VNet, virtual net or virtual data center, we will create networks, public and private subnet. So public subnet will have internet access, but private subnet will not have internet access. Then we will install launch instances or virtual instances in public subnet and private subnet. Then we will define the firewall subnet and bastion host subnet, where we will deploy firewall and bastion host. And then we will create firewall to control traffic access, and also we will create bastion host so that VMs can be managed from that. So bastion host is it's a concept like where we will enable public access on one VM, and from that VM all the virtual machines that are created in the in the network, all those can be managed from that. So only from internet, only this machine will be accessed with the IP address, public IP address. So from there we will manage all these machines. So that's the concept of bastion host, and all these machines will not be directly accessed. And also we will create routing tables to route the traffic towards the firewall, and then we will route the traffic, and by default everything will be blocked on the firewall. We will create application rules and NAT rules to allow access, and then we will create this documentation and hand over the project to customer operations for management. So this is high level what we proposed in this use case in this project. So let's move forward. I have created one the diagram that for this project delivery. So this is the high level diagram what is proposed that we discussed in our previous slide. The different architecture that will be created in this. So so in this, as discussed, we have defined the resource group, the virtual network. We will name it VNet Mumbai. So this customer is located in India. So we created a virtual network in the nearest Azure data center. So we created in the Mumbai data center of Azure. So after that, we created the firewall, and we need to define the subnet for firewall. So it will be allocated the public IP also and private IP. Then we defined the bastion host subnet. So it's again, we have to define the public IP for bastion host. So we will access from internet to this bastion host. And then we defined public subnet for Mumbai 10.1.2.0 and private subnet. So from this bastion host, we will access these instances for management. And then we will deploy instances in public subnet and private subnet. So also local firewalls are already enabled, which is called network security groups on the different instances. And to create layered security, we have enabled Azure firewall also. So from this firewall, we will control the internet access for both public and private subnets. And then we define the routing tables for public subnet and private subnet. So both of these subnets are routed towards the virtual appliance, that is this firewall. And again, for everything that's going outside, the traffic is routed towards the firewall. And on the firewall, we will create an application rule. And in this application rule, only public subnet is going to have access on the internet that's allowed. So by default, everything is blocked on the firewall, and we need to create rules for allowing the access. So I hope you understand the diagram. It's pretty simple and straightforward to understand the diagrammatic, what we are going to configure on the Azure console, and how we are going to define the things, different components of the network infrastructure and instances. So once this is done, then we will hand over this project to customer. So before handover, let's create all these components on the Azure cloud. So let's move forward and log into our Azure cloud. So in case you are not having your free tier account on Azure, I have created one previous video. Also, I'll mention the link in this video. You can create your free tier account, and then you can start playing around and create this interesting use case on the Azure cloud. So let's log into Azure cloud. So this is my Microsoft Azure console. So once you are ready with your free tier account, then you can start creating all those components. So in that you will get some free credits and you can use that. So let's move forward and create our resource group in this. So create our resource group. So we will create our resource group and define it name. So resource group, hyphen Mumbai. So we will create this in Central India. Tags, create, and then click on create. So this has been created. Go to resource group. So this resource group has been created. So all the components, all the infrastructure will be created in this resource group. Before deploying any infrastructure, you need to create the resource group in Azure. So let's move forward and create our virtual networks. VNet virtual networks, or define our virtual data center over the cloud. Create virtual network. So let's select our. So I have defined the name of our virtual network, VNet Mumbai. Also, we will define the. So before deploying anything, I'll suggest you to create your high-level diagram. I have created a video also how to create these diagrams, and it's very important to mention all those details in that. So create a diagram, mention all the components that we are going to create in the infrastructure, like subnets, their IP address spacings, all these details mentioned in the diagram. Then start creating your infrastructure over the cloud. So let's define all these virtual networks, and then we can move forward. So I'm going to define the VNet. So next, so here we will define our network that we defined, 10.1.0.0/16. So apart from that, let's define the subnets as I defined in the diagram. So let's define the names, define the IP addressing. So PS public subnet hyphen VNet hyphen Mumbai. So let's go to the diagram, the IP address that we have mentioned for it. So PS hyphen VNet Mumbai 10.1.2.0. 10.1.2.0/24. So this is our public subnet. Add, and let's add private subnet, PRIV subnet hyphen VNet hyphen Mumbai. So let's go to our diagram, 10.1.3.0. 10.1.3.0/24. Let's add. So we have defined our public and private subnets. Let's move forward. Now here it's asking for define the bastion host and the firewall. Let's enable our bastion host. Bastion host is named, let's VH hyphen VNet hyphen Mumbai. Let's define the subnet for bastion host as defined in the network. So 10.1.1.0/24. 10.1.1.0/24. We need to create the public IP also, bastion host hyphen public IP. Okay. Let's enable the firewall also to control the network access. So firewall hyphen VNet hyphen Mumbai. Subnet that we are going to define 10.1.4.0. 10.1.4.0/24. Also, let's create the public IP for this, firewall hyphen public IP. Okay, it's done now. Let's move forward, create tags. If you want to define tags, you can define that. So running some validation checks. So now everything is ready. Let's click on create. So our deployment has started. Our virtual network is started. So it will create all those subnets, deploy the firewall, deploy all those network security groups to enable firewall on the local and firewall on the perimeter side. So as per the diagram, this is going to create all these different components that we defined. It will create this one, this one, this one, the subnets, the network security groups, and firewall that we are. So we are going to define two different types of firewall in this. So let's get back and see the progress. So deployment is in progress. This will take 1 or 2 minutes, and our virtual data center will be ready after some time. So that's what I was saying. Plan your infrastructure, create your diagram, then start creating the infrastructure over the cloud. Else you will getting confused what IP address needs to be kept and what names to be kept, because at the later stage you need to use all these names and you can identify the different components that are there in your network. So if you have planned the names of the components and the IP addresses, so it will be very easy for you to identify and use those different components in your environment. So it's very important, the naming convention, the planning of different networks while creating any infrastructure over the cloud or anywhere where you are planning. So it's a good practice. So create a diagram, create all the components, mention the naming convention in that. Very important. So this will take few minutes to deploy our infrastructure. So for the time being, I can pause this video, I'll resume it. So our deployment is complete now. Let's go to our resource. So our resource group is ready. So VNet Mumbai, it has defined the Bastion host and all the subnets in this. So we have default subnet, we have public subnet, the private subnet. This default is by default created in the Azure cloud. So we have defined our public, private, firewall subnet, and Bastion host. So now let's define the routing tables. Before that, after that we can deploy our instances. So let's create routing tables. Route tables. Create a route table. So let's select the resource group. Again, the naming convention RT-public subnet-VNet-Mumbai. So we are defining this routing table for public subnet. Tags, review and create. So submitting deployment, this will create our public routing table. So let's go to home, route tables, refresh it. So yeah, so our routing table is created. Let's create another routing table for our private subnet. Routing table -prib subnet -vnet Mumbai. Tags, validation passed, click on create. So this will create our routing table for private subnet. Let's go to home, routing tables. So let's refresh. Its deployment succeeded. Refresh it. Yeah. So we have both our public and private subnets. So let's associate the routing table with our subnets. So associate private subnet with private routing table. So VNet Mumbai, our virtual network, private subnet with private routing table. With public subnet, let's associate our public subnet. VNet Mumbai, our public subnet. Okay. Now let's launch instances in both of these subnets, and let's create our virtual machines. Virtual machines, click on create virtual machine. So selecting a resource group, VM virtual machine, public subnet, public. So keep everything default. We are going to install 2019 operating system. So from here you can select as per your project requirements. So for this project I have selected this 4 vCPUs and 16 gig RAM. So all these sizes are defined, so you can select as per your requirement. So here I'm selecting this, and also it's showing you the price that will be there for per month. Later we can see per hour charges also. Let's define the username, when admin, and password as per the security policy. You can kept as per your choice also. So by default we are going to allow 3389 port for it. So at the later stage also you can allow different ports as per the requirement. You can add them in the network security group and in the firewall. So disks, we are taking premium SSD. Let's click on networking. So in networking, we are going to deploy this machine in the public subnet. Public IP we do not require because we are going to manage this VM from our Bastion host. So no need of public IP on the instance. Management, let's keep it default. Advanced, that is required for custom data and all those different advanced requirements. Tags, review and create. So here you can see validation has passed, and also you can see it will be charged 14 rupees per hour. So this VM is costing that much. So let's click on create to launch this instance in our public subnet. So submitting deployments, let's install launch our another instance. By the time this will get ready, so virtual machines, create another virtual machine in private subnet. So again, we need to select resource group, VM, private. So we are creating a basic infrastructure for the customer. So again, you can select any of the operating system and the size of the machines as per the requirement. Let's create when admin and password. Keep those ports default. Premium disk, networking. Let's launch this machine in our private subnet. No requirement of public IP. Next, management. Advanced, keep default. Tags, keep default. Review and create. Again, I have selected the same configuration, so it's again going to charge 14 rupees per hour. So let's click on create. So initializing deployment, submitting the deployment. So this will take another 1 or 2 minutes. Then our server will be ready for public private subnet. So let's see, go to our virtual machines. I think our public VM is ready. So let's go to VM public. So here we can we click on connect. We go to connect, and from here we can select the Bastion host. Also, in case you forgot or want to reset the password, you can do that by clicking on a reset of the password. It's common that you forget or make some mistakes while setting the password. In case you are not able to connect, you can reset the password also. So let's connect through Bastion host. So this will open a new window. So put the username and password when admin that we defined that time. The password. Click on connect. This will open in new console. Allow. So our server is getting ready. Let's go to virtual machines and access our private machine. Refresh it. Yes, our public VM is also ready. Let's click connect that also. Connect bash and host. Username when admin. Password that you defined while creation. Click on connect. So this will again open in new window. So our public server VM is getting ready. So this will take some few minutes for initial configuration. So let's disable the security for the time being to access internet or download some softwares. Later you can again enable it. So let's try to access internet. So by default, everything, all the internet is allowed on all the instances of Azure. So later you can block as per your requirement. Google.com. Yes, our internet is working on our public VM. And Amazon.com. Yeah, so our internet is working fine. Let's go to private instance. No. Local server, disable the security. So let's try to access internet on the private instance. Yes, our internet is working fine. Test. Yes, it's working. Amazon.com. Yes, that's working fine also. So by default, everything is allowed. So let me go to the diagram that we defined to review what all we have done so far. So far we have created our virtual data center and defined the different subnets, launched the machine in public subnet and private subnet, defined the routing tables, but so far we haven't added the routes. These are the routes to route traffic towards the firewall. So far everything is going bypassing the firewall. If nothing is controlled, so all these instances are reaching internet directly, but we will define the routing table, the routes in that, so that we can route traffic through the firewall for both of these instances. So current picture is clear. Let's make further changes now to control the traffic using the firewall. So let's go to our console. Let's go to the routing tables. So if we see our, we need to take care of the firewall also. So this is our firewall. Let's see the private IP of this. We need to route the traffic towards that 10.1.10.1.4.4. So this is our firewall. Open it in new tab. Let's go to home, our routing tables, add the routes, public subnet. So click on route, add route. So route name, internet access. So let's define the prefix 0.0.0.0.0/04. So for anything, route traffic through this virtual appliance. So next hop is the firewall. So we are directing the traffic towards the firewall only. So private subnet, create the routes, add route, internet access. Prefix 0.0.0/0. Appliance, next hop firewall, click OK. So let's check the public subnet. So our route is ready for that. For private subnet, our route is ready. So if we go to our instances, we will see that now by default on the firewall, everything will be blocked. So if we see our firewall, the rules, so all this is by default. There no rules exist, or application rules or net rules or network rule. So everything is blocked by default. So if we go through the instances, so if we refresh this, so this will be blocked by default. So this will be implemented after few seconds. So let me refresh again and see if once this gets implemented. So it takes time to implement the rules. Rules get implemented on the firewall or enable of routing tables. So if we access this, yes. So this is blocked. Internet is blocked on the private. So this is our private VM. So if we refresh on public instance, public VM, that is again blocked. So now traffic is routing through the firewall. So let's create the application rule to allow internet access on the public VM. Internet access. Let's define the priority internet access. So source public IP. So source, we are defining it for our public subnet 10.1.2.0/24. So if we go to the diagram, so we have public subnet 10.1.2.0. So we are going to allow internet for this subnet, not for this. So we are going to create route for this one only. Protocols HTTP, HTTPS star.google.com, .amazon.com. So let's add this rule. So this rule will be created in few seconds. So once this is created, then we will check. So yes, our rule is in place now. So if we go to public, internet should work on this instance. Yes, our internet is working on public instance as per our requirement. And if we see our on private instance, the internet will not work. So that's how we are controlling the access. And for this public private instances, we can create virtual network, create network rule collection for accessing for patches only. So if let's create another rule if these private instances has to download some patches from Microsoft.com, so we can allow that only. Patching rule. Let's define priority 102, allow patches. So our private subnet, let's go to the diagram, 10.1.3.0, 10.1.3.0/24. Ports for the time being, we can mention HTTP, HTTPS. So need to download from Microsoft.com. Add. So we have Windows operating system. We can download patches from Microsoft.com. So we can allow that public site, or whatever port you want to allow, you can allow that as well. So rule is in place. So let's go to our private instance. So if we open Microsoft.com, no rule match. This will take some time for implementation. let's decrease the priority. 101 already exist. 100 save. So let's keep this on the deny so that only allow can be created. This will take some time. Refresh it. So our rule has been applied, so I have placed it before blocking the access, and there was minor mistake in the rule, so I identified it. So I have mentioned Microsoft, so O was missing, so I have updated the rule. So again, this rule is in place for patching. So if we go to our virtual VM in private subnet, if we access microsoft.com, so that access is working. So it's like the patching from to download the patches from Microsoft site, it's allowed. Apart from that, nothing is allowed. So that's sort of creating secure access on the private subnet and public, and allowing the access on the private subnet. So as per our discussion and requirements, we have created our infrastructure and blocked the access. So now customer can place a web layer in the public subnet, application layer on the private subnet, so that application do not require access on the internet and web layer need access. So web layer can access through firewall and go to internet. So this is having access to this one only. So that's how it works, and we have created the infrastructure. So let's move forward with next set of activities. So then we can hand over this infrastructure, and then customer can deploy all this infrastructure. So our next step is we have created the high level diagram, the documentation, how to access the login details for this, and now customer can download this, can access this infrastructure from their environment, and they can deploy applications, and they can migrate data over the cloud. So that's how things work in industry. The infrastructure has been created, and customer can start deploying their test environment over the cloud. They may deploy more instances, or they can install applications on the instances that we deployed, and control the access using the firewall. So if also I would like to show one more thing. Let's go to the resource group. We can see our the diagrammatically also how different components are there. So if we go to the resource visualizer, let me access that. So here it will create the environment that we have deployed in this. So if you can see this, we have created VNet created all this. Not very simple. The traffic flow is not clear, but I have defined the traffic flow as per the diagram that we created. So we have two VMs, virtual machine VM private and VM public, and their network security groups and routing tables to route the traffic, and this is firewall and bashing host. So all those components, if you want to see those diagrammatically, then you can see that as well. So it's quite easy to understand the diagrams and different components in that. Also you can access different components from here also. You can maximize it, minimize it as per the requirement fit to it. So if you want to see the activity, what's happening in the network, you can view that also. Let's go to the firewall. From here we can access. Let me try that as well. So let's go to home, and then let's go to firewall, VNet firewall. So if you want to see what all access is going on, so we can see that in the activity log also. So what all being accessed and dropped. So we have created several rules, and so from here what all has been accepted and what has been dropped over here. So all these activities are there. You can watch that for diagnostic or monitoring the environment. So and another thing I want to show you is that if we go to our home and resource group, let's go to our RG Mumbai. So for all this the environment that we have created, that we can download our template, and let me open that. So like in future also, like if we can if we want to deploy all those components automatically, we can download this template. So from here we can export the template, and we can save all these parameters and save this template, and we can deploy again if we need in separate environment, or we want to create your test environment again, or you want to create these components. So you can download this template again, and that can be created again. So if we go to our so here we can save it. So expose, save it. So once this is saved, then once this is ready, you can deploy all that infrastructure by going to deploy custom template. So if once you are done with use test cases or something like that, you can again deploy this template again. So quick start template, no, cancel, sorry, custom deployment, build your template, load file. Yeah, so from here that we that we created the template, so we need to download that template, load file. So this one is the same one. Let me locate that file where I saved it. So this one is, we need to take out that file. So let me go to that correct one. So if we select this file, open, yeah. So all those again, we can see this, and then we can save it and deploy again in our environment. So how easily, that's how automation works. You can download this template and again deploy the template into the environment. So that's how there is a concept called infrastructure as a code. So you can also modify this code also and deploy all those components using coding language. So I hope that was helpful in understanding the environment. And in the end, what you can do is, this environment we created for the customer, but I explained this for demo purpose. So in the end, you can click on resource group, and we can delete all the components. So go to resource group and delete resource group, so that you can delete it. -Mumbai. Delete. So this will delete all those components that are there in the resource group, and you will not be charged for that. So if we go to the diagram, we have handed over this environment to customer, and he can deploy all his applications. So learning objectives in this, that understanding the customer requirements, what exactly he is looking for. Then we have enabled the solution on Azure. So creation of virtual DC data center on Azure, creation of high-level diagram, and then their learning of different Microsoft Azure services like VNet, Bash host, Firewall, defining routing tables, and created NAT rules, and then created application access, tested the access from both instances. Then testing is complete. We are not able to access from private, but we can access from public server, but from private virtual machine we can access for secure purpose only, for patching purpose only. Then I have also described generating the diagram from Azure console, that all those components that we can see diagrammatically. Then I have shown that how you can download the template for all this environment that we created over Azure, and in future also you can use the same template to create the same environment. So from learning perspective, all these are all these things that you have learned in this. So I hope you have enjoyed this and got a lot of knowledge how you can create a planned infrastructure by understanding the customer requirements, and how you can deploy that all infrastructure over the Azure cloud. So I hope that is helpful. And in case you have any queries, questions, or doubts, then you can contact me, ping me at techinfore@gmail.com. So thank you very much. I'll keep on creating more industry use cases in future also. Thank you. Bye-bye.